Richard Stallman is known for many great things, like not wanting to call Linux Linux, instead originally going with the name Lignux before eventually using the slightly less terrible name GNU/Linux, saying that he has never installed GNU/Linux.
I've never installed GNU/Linux. I never saw a point in learning how. There was always someone I could ask to do it for me who already knew how and who wouldn't make any mistakes.
I love the interviewer's face when he says that.
I've never installed GNU/Linux.
He's like, what? What are you saying? And of course, important things like GNU, the various forms of the GPL, the FSF, little things like that that nobody's ever heard of. But what if I told you the most important thing about Richard Stallman was a lie? You've been lied to all along. The GNU Copypasta. If you don't know what it is, here it is. I'd just like to interject for a moment. What you're referring to as Linux is in fact GNU/Linux, or as I've recently taken to calling it, GNU plus Linux. Linux is not an operating system unto itself, but rather another free component of a fully functioning GNU system made useful by the GNU core libs, shell utilities, and vital system components comprising a full OS as defined by POSIX. Many computer users run a modified version of the GNU system every day without realizing it. Through a peculiar turn of events, the version of GNU which is widely used today is often called Linux, and many of its users are not aware that it is basically the GNU system developed by the GNU project. There really is a Linux, and these people are using it, but it's just a part of the system they use. Linux is the kernel, the program in the system that allocates the machine's resources to the other programs that you run. The kernel is an essential part of an operating system, but useless by itself. It can only function in the context of a complete operating system. Linux is normally used in combination with the GNU operating system. The whole system is basically GNU with Linux added, or GNU/Linux, and the so-called Linux distributions are really distributions of GNU/Linux. But what if I told you that this was never in fact stated by Richard Stallman? What if I told you this was all an elaborate ruse? But only kind of, because it kind of is a quote from Stallman, just not entirely. For some reason, judging by the archives of the page back in 2018, Stallman decided to write this on the GNU website. Incorrect quotation. A quotation circulates on the internet attributed to me, but it wasn't written by me. Here's the text that is circulating. Most of it was copied from statements I have made, but the part italicized here is not from me. It makes points that are mistaken or confused, posting the entirety of the GNU Copypasta. The main error is that Linux is not strictly speaking part of the GNU system, whose kernel is GNU herd. The version with Linux we call GNU/Linux. It's okay to call it GNU when you want to be really short, but it is better to call it GNU/Linux so as to give Torvalds some credit. We don't use the term core libs, and I'm not sure what that would mean, but GNU is much more than the specific packages we develop for it. I set out in 1983 to develop an operating system calling it GNU, and that job required developing whichever important packages we could not find elsewhere. This right here is a new copypasta that should be shared around instead. I love the GNU copypasta, but this is just a quote directly from Stallman, and I think, at least the first part, is honestly even better. What do you mean to give Torvalds some credit? Even today, the GNU project's kernel is nowhere near usable outside experimenting with the kernel itself. Outside of the BSD world, the only notable free kernel is the Linux kernel. But that's not what I want to talk about today. Instead, I want to talk about the GNU Copypasta itself, because this sent me down a rabbit hole trying to find the actual source of the quote. Where was this first actually said? And the more I looked into this, honestly, the more confused I got. What I can say with absolute certainty is some of the copypasta is directly taken from things that Stallman has said. So here is Linux and the GNU system. And this page is considerably older than people give it credit for. There are archives of this page going back to 1997. I don't know if the page is even older than that, because the Web Archive didn't exist much before that point. I believe it was first created back in... I think there are archives going back to 1995, but the web was much smaller back then. As you can see, people weren't really archiving things at any decent rate until the early 2000s, so I'm not entirely sure how far this actually goes back. But even at this point, there was a skeleton of the GNU Copypasta, just a little bit different. Many computer users run a modified version of the GNU system every day without realizing it. Through a peculiar turn of events, the version of GNU which is widely used today is more often known as Linux, and many users are not aware of the extent of its connections with the GNU project. There really is a Linux. It is a kernel, and these people are using it. But you can't use a kernel by itself. A kernel is useful only as part of a whole operating system. The system in which Linux is used is a modified variant of the GNU system, in other words, a Linux-based GNU system. Many users are not fully aware of the distinction between the kernel, which is Linux, and the whole system, which they also call Linux. The ambiguous use of the name doesn't promote understanding. But let's jump ahead to about 2002-2003, and notice this section right here change. There really is a Linux, and these people are using it, but it is not the operating system. Linux is the kernel, the program in the system that allocates the machine's resources to the other programs you run. The kernel is an essential part of an operating system, but useless by itself. It can only function in the context of a complete operating system. Linux is normally used in combination with the GNU operating system. The whole system is basically GNU, with Linux functioning as its kernel. So looking at the Copypasta and comparing it with this post from Stallman, many computer users run a modified version of the GNU system every day without realizing it. Through a peculiar turn of events, there are some modified sections here, but the general gist of it is the same. And then this bit here, there really is a Linux. Right here, there really is a Linux. Linux is the kernel, the program in the system that allocates the machine's resources. Linux is the kernel, the program in the system that allocates the machine's resources. But there is one very important part still missing. All of these so-called Linux distributions are really distributions of GNU/Linux. On the modern version of the page, it is right here. But when did it get added into the archive? So here we have 2007. The quote is not there. But in 2008, right here, all these so-called Linux distributions are really distributions of GNU/Linux. So, the earliest point this could have appeared is sometime between November 2007 and roughly May 2008. There is a big gap here with no archives, somewhere between that period. Now that accounts for the actual important parts and sets an earliest point for when the Copypasta could exist. But it doesn't account for the opening. The I'd like to interject for a moment. What you're referring to as Linux is in fact GNU/Linux, or as I've recently taken to calling it, GNU plus Linux. I am not able to find an original source for this. I don't know if Stallman had said this in an IRC or an email or somewhere else out there, or if this is entirely fabricated for the sake of the Copypasta. My guess would be this is an original part of the Copypasta, which is generally said to have begun as a post on 4chan's G board, the technology board, but I've not been able to verify this. I've gone through 4chan archives, I found plenty of people saying the quote, but all of the quotes in the archives are way after 2008, way after 2009, which I know for a fact that this was already floating around at that point. So I am calling on all of the internet sleuths out there, if you want to go dig back through the old 4chan archives between 2008, 2009, and if you can find who originally said this, please let me know. Please reach out to me. I would absolutely love to know. Is this important at all? No, not at all, but it will put your name down in the history of FOSS. Whilst I'm not able to find the earliest point in the 4chan archives, I can say for an absolute fact this was floating around back in 2009. I know for a fact because of part of the reason it's likely attributed to Stallman. So here is a blog post, Linux not GNU Linux. This is an archive from October 2009. It's basically just a post about the Linux naming controversy. Should it be GNU Linux? Should it be Linux? All of this good stuff. And if we go down to the comment section, there is one from an account called Richard Stallman. Now, do I believe this is actually from Stallman's account? No. No, I don't. However, people on the internet are stupid, and they see the name Richard Stallman and assume, this must be from him. And the date on this post is the 18th of March, 2009, and it is the GNU Copypasta in its entirety. What I also know exists is this clip from the Computer America show posted 16 years ago on June 18th, 2009. Have a listen to this.
Well, before we get into anything, let me read a couple of emails we had. This one.
Okay.
This is a good one here. Hey guys, this has been bothering me for a while now. I was listening to the show and I'd just like to interject for a moment. What you're referring to as Linux is in fact GNU Linux, or as I've recently taken to calling it, GNU plus Linux. Linux is not an operating system unto itself, but rather another free component of a fully functioning GNU system.
Skip ahead just a little bit.
People are using it, but it's just a part of the system they use. Linux is the kernel, the program in the system that allocates the machine's resources to the other programs that you run. The kernel is an essential part of an operating system, but useless by itself. It can only function in the context of a complete operating system. Linux is normally used in combination with the GNU operating system.
Jump ahead a bit more.
I had Richard Stallman on the show. Sorry for the long email, Richard. You know, I don't
and that
know
right there.
Linux distributions are really distributions of GNU Linux. Sorry for the long email, Richard. You know, I don't know which Richard this is, but we have had Richard Stallman on the show in the past, and Richard Stallman made a point of this, and I...
So, there is a link here to a archive of the show. This archive is dead, but the archive is available on the Wayback Machine. The problem is this is the wrong episode. This is not the episode that this was set on. I scrubbed the entire thing. It's not present. It's so not present that the host that is reading this right now is actually not present on the episode. He took the day off. So I don't actually know what episode this really came from, as the rest of the archive doesn't exist anymore. I am not able to tell if the episode is older than the date of this post right here, and right now, this is the earliest confirmed usage of the Copypasta. Again, most people say it comes from 4chan's Gboard. I cannot find the post at this point on the board. So right now, this is about as far back as I can go. However, I would not be surprised if it was already in use by this point, as nobody sort of responded to it. And if this was the first ever usage of the post, and people thought it was from Stallman, I would assume that somebody on the thread would also respond to the fact that this was being said, right? Like, that logically makes sense. So I feel like there has to be a post that is older than this, but I am simply not able to find it. For the hell of it, I even went and asked ChatGPT if there's just something that I missed, because I'm at a complete impasse trying to find the source of the post. And ChatGPT didn't even know about this post or know about this video, so it assumed the date was a little bit newer, something around 2011. So if somebody can help me here, if somebody can find a 4chan post before March 18th, 2009, and can somehow indicate that this might be the original source of the post, I would absolutely love to see it. This is the least important thing you could ever do in your life, but I still need help here. So, if you somehow sat to the end of this video, thank you, I guess. If you have some information, let me know in the comment section down below. If you just want to rant about the GNU Copypasta and maybe post it again, do that as well. If you like the video, go subscribe as well. And if you really like the video and like to see me do stupid things like this, be sure to go check out the Patreon subscribe style Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below, and become one of these amazing people over here. That's going to be it for me, and GNU.
Something like this.